and welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have you all for the Leadership for Future class of 2023 graduation. It took a lot to get here. We had a little bit of a lag because of COVID, so this is our first year back since 2019. I'm incredibly thankful for our program sponsors, one of them being the Senate, which is why we're in this room today, and also our supporting institutions, the people who sent their people here to be a part of the program. I couldn't do it without them. And I'm also, I can't help but thank Haley specifically, Haley De La Rosa, the workforce liaison at the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. She's just a completely fantastic human being. I would not. Her love of Excel spreadsheet has saved me more times than I can count. You make it a joy to work with you, and I'm just so glad we get to be partners on this and future projects. So thank you, Haley. So many of you are familiar with Leadership for Future. I'm seeing some people who've gone through the program before, who've spoken for the program before, and well, now you're all familiar because you're either a part of the class or know someone who is a part of the class. But the original intention when this program was started over 20 years ago was to provide an opportunity for leaders to come together from diverse backgrounds to forge relationships and networks that will forever benefit them, their organizations, and the communities that they come from. This year, we have strived to maintain that original purpose by creating a unique and empowering environment, by bringing together community groups and labor unions and pushing our participants beyond their comfort zones every session. I am a proud Leadership for Future graduate myself. I was part of the class of 2019, and Erica Hammond, she's walking over here. She was me in 2019, so a little shout out for Erica. But I know how valuable this program can be. I still am in communication with most of my classmates from back then, though that time that we spent together was such a moment for me in taking the work I was already doing and bringing it to the next level, and that's what I wanted to continue for this year's class, and I think we really were able to do that. I'm so proud and thankful for the commitment of the program participants themselves. This is a lot of extra work to take on. We live full lives, we have jobs, we have families, we have places we could be, we have sleep that we could be having. But y'all took an extra 4 hours of your day on a Monday after already working a full day to be present, to learn, to commit to yourselves, to the people next to you, and to me, that you are advocates, you're organizers, you're leaders, and you're willing to go that step further to do your work in the community and change Rhode Island for the better. So I really am just so incredibly humbled and grateful for that commitment from our class this year. We did start with a 2-day retreat at the Laborers Training Academy in Pomfret, Connecticut, where we ate like kings. And that is where our commitment came as well from a program to feed y'all to the best of our ability every single time. So even though the Pomfret staff are not here today, I want to thank them because they really made it such a wonderful, welcoming environment. And we spent 2 days together with Rob Jones. And Rob will be speaking later, but he really helped us start on a path of vulnerability and acceptance and understanding that our identities and what makes us different is something, it's so cliche, but it is something that we can use as a tool and as a way to connect with each other, to be better leaders and to be better organizers. And then we dove right into our programming where we did 10 weeks every Monday with fantastic guest speakers. We covered topics ranging from labor history and BIPOC history to logic models and communications, lobbying, public speaking. We really tried to get everything we could that you need when you are a leader in a community and when you are an organizer and an advocate. We also spent this time developing our community action projects, which I was so blown away. I mean, I spent the past 10 weeks working with y'all from inception or from the idea to the reality, but just seeing them on the poster board, seeing everyone on our day of action at the State House last week, being able to engage with the employees at the State House, with legislators, with labor leaders that came in to see the work that you're doing. It's just so clear that this is not just a thought exercise, this is real. We are doing real work, we are real leaders, we are in the community and we are making a difference. And we will have them on display. Bob was saying we're gonna have those on display at the Institute because they were just such fantastic presentations. You guys make it so easy to brag about you and the work that you're doing, so thank you for that. And again, I'm thankful for everybody here. I'm thankful for the families that have supported our participants so that they can be here and be present. And we have a great speaking program. We're going to try and keep it as brief as possible because it's Friday night. But I want to introduce George Nee, president of the AFL-CIO, and from the original Leadership for a Future class in the year 2000. So George, if you want to come up and say a few things.
Thank you very much, Autumn. And the first thing I'd like to say is, again, the job that Autumn and Haley have done this year in putting this together has been extraordinary, broken new ground, and is something that I think we should all be very proud of. So let me do one more clap for them. I think what I'd like to do tonight, I'm going to focus on the labor movement, because that's what I've been doing my whole life, so I figure I can handle that. When I think about the labor movement, all of us in this room tonight have an obligation. We have actually two obligations. You may not have known that when you walked in here. Your first obligation is to build the labor movement by honoring the people who have come before us, the people who went on strike, got jailed, got beaten up, got killed to build the labor movement. We have an obligation to them to make it even stronger. We also have an obligation to the people who are going to come after us to keep it strong, to keep it solid, so that our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids can make a decent living, be treated with respect, have a voice in the community, and have a voice on the job. So those are solemn obligations, because people really struggle to make sure that that happens. Because we are, and I mentioned this when I had the remarks when we did the lobbying thing, we're the people's lobby. We're not just the labor movement's lobby, we're the people's lobby. And think about the things that we're doing these days. I want to give special credit to our Secretary-Treasurer, Pat Crowley, and the work that he's done with Priscilla Dela Cruz from the environmental community to build Climate Jobs Rhode Island. Because what are we going to do with Climate Jobs Rhode Island and across the country? We're going to have a better environment, we're going to have clean water and clean air, and we're going to do it with union labor. That's the difference. That's the people's lobby. We're going to get rid of, we're going to make wage theft and misclassification a felony. We're going to have school breakfast and lunch for every kid in Rhode Island. We're going to have a good workers' compensation system and an unemployment system, because we're the people's lobby and we fight for everybody. And that's one of the things we do as a labor movement. Another thing we do as a labor movement is we demand to have a voice and a say in every decision that gets made in Rhode Island, not just in our workplace where we have a collective bargaining agreement, but in every element of our society. And that's why we have labor representation on all the boards and commissions where decisions are made, whether it's RIPTA, whether it's the convention center, whether it's resource recovery. We have to make sure that labor's voice is heard every time public bodies meet, and that's critical. We also have to continue our obligation to our community in what we do in charitable activities, in the building trades, helping to build baseball fields and ramps for people so they can get into their houses. We have to make sure that we participate in food drives. We're on the boards of all kinds of community organizations because we care about our community. We care about having a voice in our workplace, but we have to have a voice in our community. The other thing we have to realize is that there is a tremendous correlation between union membership, union density, and the quality of life and the standard of living for the people in our society. It's very easy to do this. Do some research. I'll give you all an assignment for a research project. Look at the quality of life in states that have a strong labor movement and the quality of life in states that have a weak labor movement. It's not accidental. And look at the United States labor movement versus countries around the world. One of the reasons why we're not doing as well with the countries around the world compared to the American standard of living, we like to think we're the best. We're not. Other countries have a much higher percentage of unionization. And that's why other countries have, in some cases, a lot better healthcare system, and paid leave, and family leave, and childcare. A lot better than we have. There's a difference, and the difference is the percentage of people that are in those countries that are members of the labor movement. The other thing the labor movement continues to do and has to do even better deals with this building in Rhode Island. We have to continue to be a major force in a democracy. We have to make sure that our voices are heard in this building, that our members get elected to sit in those seats in this building. The president of the Senate, Senator Ruggiero, 40-year member of the laborers union. It makes a difference when people who sit there come from the labor movement. And that's why we take democracy very, very seriously. We get our members registered to vote, we pressure them, and we encourage them to get out and vote. We encourage them to run for office. We participate in campaigns. In some cases, we help to get people elected, and in some cases, we help to get people defeated. Nothing the matter with that. That's democracy. But we have to be a major player in this democracy. And people complain about it. They say, well, labor has too much power. We don't have enough power. Because if we had more power, things would be even better. So we shouldn't shy away from that. We should be active participants in the democracy. Also, I think it's critical for people to understand that in our world, there is no freedom without a free, democratic labor union. You look across the world, whether they're dictatorships of the left or the right, the two groups that people who don't want people to have power try to destroy is the labor movement and a free press. Unfortunately, hundreds of union organizers are killed every year trying to organize in other countries. So you can't have a real democracy unless you have a free trade union movement. Now, I want to leave with some good news, because sometimes people think, well, the labor movements, they're not that popular. People don't like the labor movements. Don't fool yourselves. We do a poll in Rhode Island every year, and it mirrors what's happening nationally. We've asked this question: what are people's impressions of the labor movement? In 2013, 44% of people in Rhode Island had a negative impression of the labor movement. A positive impression. 47% had a negative impression. 2023, 65% of the people in Rhode Island have a positive impression of the labor movement to only 24% that have a negative impression. We asked another question. Are labor unions necessary to protect working people? 10 years ago, 58 to 41. This year, 78 to 20. So what's being done by the labor movements and improving quality of life for people is being recognized in this state and across the country. So again, thank you for taking the time to take this class, to become, you already were leaders because you wouldn't have taken this if you didn't think you had leadership potential. Now you know you've got, because you're going to get a certificate. That's going to, then you're going to really know that you're a leader. But you honor your brothers and sisters in the labor movement by your presence here tonight and by your presence in this program. And I get to ask you, in addition to honoring the past and honoring the people coming, you have to do one more thing. You all have to find one or two people for next year's class. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
All right, so our next speaker is a very ardent supporter of the Leadership for a Future program, the Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research, Bob Delaney.
I have to begin by doing the same thing many other people did, and I really have to take a moment to thank Autumn and Haley for the work that they did. This would not have happened without them. We went 3 years without having Leadership for a Future, and it felt hollow. We knew there was a gap, and we can never let a gap happen. You can't allow leadership not to be encouraged. And I really want to take the time to thank Haley and Autumn and Erica back there, because Erica ran this for a long time. She was a mentor to these two fabulous ladies. So I want to say thank you to all three. I want to say thank you to George. This program would not have been here. In 2020, George and a number of other people had the inspiration of saying, we have to have a leadership training program, leadership with an edge, leadership that inspires people. I want to thank Patrick, the Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO, for his constant support of the Leadership for a Future class, and for stepping in and playing much more of an advocacy role for labor and for leadership. So thank you very much. We often say, what's leadership? And if you speak to 1,000 people, you'll get 997 different definitions. But many of the words will be common. One of the things that seems to arise over and over again is that leadership is not a title, but it's an ability to be able to inspire followership. You don't have to be the boss, you don't have to be the top. You have to be able to inspire people where you work, where you live, in your family, in your community, to follow you, to follow good ideas. And when George talks about organized labor is something that changed the fabric of the United States and Canada, my two experiences together. I'm both an American and a Canadian. I'm a third-generation labor leader, and my son is a labor leader. Many people go on to do many things, but organized labor encourages you to participate, and it's a calling. It's a yearning to make sure that you play your role in changing society and making it a better place for your children and their children and their children's children. So I really have to say thank you to you, because you put on the backpack of leadership. You've taken this opportunity to add more tools to that toolbox. As George said, you already admitted you're a leader. If you weren't, you wouldn't have taken the program. There was something gnawing at you to say, I can do something and I can make a change. And that's what happened. And you were given the opportunity on the very first night when we had the first conversation, and I said, you have agreed to take on responsibility to make change. And that's what this program does. It encourages you to make change. want you to think about something. 1776, this was the first state to break away from the Commonwealth. It was the first state to give the finger to the king. It wasn't until 1791 that it became a state. All of the things that happen today started long before then, but are historically referenced back to 1776 and 1791. And then 100 years later when they built this building, 132 years ago. One of the things that strikes me every time I come in this room as an American is this room, is this building. I want you to stop for a minute. I want you to look around. And I want you to listen. What you're hearing is nothing. You're hearing the echoes of history, of 135 years of change, of arguments and disagreements and coalitions and people advocating for each and every one of us. 130 plus years. But you're also seeing the advocacy of organized labor, who was on the outside supporting that. This chamber is an echo of history. It's an echo of change. It will be here long after you and I are gone. And some of your voices will be in this room. Some of those voices are labor leaders, are union leaders, are community leaders, and they sit in this room and they make decisions. You will too. And this is the very beginning of that journey. Our responsibility is to make sure that you're given the tools and the support, both to make the little decisions, and for some of you to say, I'm going to run for the House or the Senate. And you'll come and you'll get support from organized labor, and some of you will win and some of you won't. But the ones that don't win, you'll still continue to make change, because that's what leaders do. Every time we go to the baseball, every time we come up to home plate and we swing, we miss more than we don't. But they're all still people who have made the stride for leadership. And you have to continue to do that. There's generations of change in here. Generations and generations. Somebody walked in this building tonight. They came in the back door when I came in and they said, wow, that's what this is. This is a wow factor, not because of the building, but because of the rich history it has. I welcome you to the rich history. I want you to be a piece of that rich history. But I want you to continue to find ways of making change that improves the lives of everybody that comes behind us, so that you too have a voice that echoes here or outside or in your community or in your home. Because the job of a leader is not to be out in front and be the boss. It's to inspire people to fellowship. Inspire people to come together for change. Because anytime two people come together, change will happen. Congratulations and thank you.
All right, so our last speaker before we move on to our student speaker is the fabulous Rob Jones.
Thank you, Autumn. Will all the graduates of this class please stand? Can the rest of us give them a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. I have 4 minutes, so bear with me. I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather one should walk with me than just to show the way. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. And the very best of teachers are the ones who live their creeds. For to see the good put into action is what everybody needs. I can soon learn how to do it if you'll let me see it done. I can watch your hand in motion, but your tongue too fast may run. And the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. For I may misunderstand you in the fine advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding in how you act and how you live. That's by Langston Hughes. I wanted to start that out because my relationship to this program wasn't exactly in 2000. I think it might have been 2006 or 7. We actually had a program with another organization, and we said, Rhode Island's too big to have two organizations doing two programs, so we combined. That was a joke, Rhode Island's too big? Okay. But my part in the program was to do the diversity, equity, and inclusion sort of retreat. And there's a method to the madness with starting off with a program like that. Because my philosophy on diversity, equity, and inclusion is about, it's not a concept, it's what you do. It's what you do. We call this program Leadership for a Future, but the future starts right now. And so during that weekend, wouldn't you agree we had a good time, right? It was a good time. It was challenging. People were vulnerable. People shared, and we started building trust among each other that continued to today. But a lot of it was about understanding who we are and how we're socialized to be. We all belong to many different identity groups. Some of those groups have power and privilege. Some of them don't. But realizing all of that and realizing that none of us can live alone. Hence, labor unions, the faith community, and the other community coming together, realizing the value in all of us. And when we come together, we can be a very much unbeatable force. Unbeatable force. Hopefully, during that weekend, you left with more questions than answers. You know, some of you, while we were going through it, was like, why didn't I know that? Or, wow, I haven't had that experience. The whole purpose of coming together to do something that's good and right is to learn from each other, to learn from each other, because none of us can live alone. And we realize that for some of us, this is the beginning of a journey. For many of you, it was affirmation that weekend of some things we talked about. And for some of you, it was like, you know what, I got to change some things. I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to get to know you, to be in your lives. This is the beginning. No, I should say this is another beginning for you. But I wanted you to hear that poem. And just by a show of hands, how many of you have heard that poem before? Live Your Creed. That's Sarah. Yeah. That poem is about doing. Leadership for a Future is a program that is about doing. Some of you might have heard me say this. There are two kinds of doers in the world. Those that are doers with a small d, and those that are doers with a capital D. The doers with the small d, we know who they are. They talk a lot. We've been in meetings with them, committees. And then, when it comes time to who's going to step up and do it, crickets. Then we have doers like you. When there's a job that needs to be done, and they ask for a volunteer, you're like, I'll do it. Those are doers with a capital D. You not only come up with things, but you actually do it. I want to encourage you to keep being doers. But like the poem says, talking is one thing. People learn by seeing what you do. We're mimickers. As animals, human animals, we're mimickers. We do what other people do, what we see being done. Because you can hear good lectures and everything, and then after that, 45 minutes later, somebody asks you, what was that all about? You're like, But you don't forget what you see people actually doing. So I want to encourage you all, continue doing. Be the example, because guess what? People are watching you. Not in a creepy way, but they are watching you. And I want to leave you with this. Before I have another poem I'm going to read. This is a quote by a person who's not so famous. And the quote is, never underestimate your ability to inspire someone else. In fact, you probably already have. They just haven't told you yet. So, the meaning behind that, carry yourself like you're inspiring someone. Because guess what? You already have. You already have. So, this last poem is called Song of the One Soul. I am all who have gone before me. I am all who will come behind. I am all who stand around me. I am the true self behind every mind. I am the sole root behind every spirit. I am the observer behind all eyes. I am why you cry for a stranger. I am you in a different guise. I am the learner of all to know. I am all who have tread this earth. I am the one to come and go through endless cycles of rebirth. I am the source where all spirits align. I am every life to rise and fall. I am the goddess and God divine. I am the one soul incarnate in all. Good luck, and I know I'll see you again. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you, Bob and George, for kicking off and continuing our speaking program. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing our class-elected speaker, Victoria Vocio, a budding labor leader and a glazer with IUPAT District Council 11 and Local 1333.
Oh, this is high. Good evening, everybody. I was very blessed to be a part of Leadership for a Future 2023. I'd first like to start by saying thank you to everyone who sponsored and everyone who could support tonight. That means a lot. And also on behalf of the rest of the class, I would like to say thank you to Rob, Erica, Haley, and a huge thank you to Autumn for making the last 2 months so memorable. When I first started my Leadership for a Future journey, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. At the retreat in Pomfret, I was greeted into a room full of professionals. Intimidated, my thought was, how am I going to keep up? As the night went on and Rob began his lessons and life stories, I couldn't help but to feel like I belonged. It was a great feeling. As the lessons flowed into the next day, the retreat came to a close, and on my journey back home, I was accompanied by Mr. Leandro Castro. As we reminisced about the past 2 days that we had, we finally came up to Mr. Leandro's residence. And as we parted ways and we said goodbye to each other, Leandro said to me with the most sincerity, "Victoria, if you ever find yourself in these streets, just know you will always have a door to go to. wow. As he shut the car door, it felt like I hit a brick wall. It occurred to me, this journey isn't about how am I going to keep up. It's not about a competition. The journey is about making new connections. It's about working together and building stronger communities. This journey, for me, was about self-growth. And over the past 10 weeks, that's exactly what it became. Every week, a new lesson, each lesson becoming a new tool for the toolbox. I hope everyone in the class was able to find self-growth. And as Rob says, there he is, think of it as a highway. We're all passing a different exit. I also hope that everybody in this room can feel how important this program is. It's definitely changed my life, so. And I hope we can continue to support it for future leaders. But enough of what I have to say. Let's hear it for the rest of the class. Leadership for a Future.
Wow. Got a little emotional. Thank you so much, Victoria. I think we are finally at that time in the program where we are going to hand out our certificates to all the graduates of this year's program.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week, Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.